Good morning, YouTube. It's 10 a.m. in the great state of Texas, and yes, that was me being a rage monster because this was one of the most aggravating projects that I've done in a very long time. So how did we get here today? So obviously the title, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. That was my goal for this one. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is coming out this weekend. I'm going to go watch that movie tonight and decided, hey, I got all these cool pigments from last week that you guys saw, and decided, hey, what better thing to do than a green wooden bowl? And I thought that would be a great idea because we've done so many other successful ones. I thought, you know what, we've learned from our mistakes of the previous bowl making for the past couple of weeks, and my train of thought was this is going to be easy. So I skipped over the part where I take apart the actual piece of firewood. I chopped it up. You guys have seen me do that before, worked it on to the bandsaw, got everything down to where we wanted to, and all we're doing here is just pouring the epoxy. And this part went relatively well. Decided I was going to do this in layers. So instead of just pouring all of the epoxy at once and try to avoid cracking, I thought I would just go ahead, pour a little bit, and then come back and pour the rest of it. So 4.5 hours later into the pressure pot, ended up taking it out, and you can hear that cool little swooshing sound. There goes the air escaping the pressure pot. And we're going to take it out and see what it kind of looks like. And this part went relatively well. Didn't have any real issues. Learned from my mistakes. Don't use hot glue when tying down these pieces because I needed to save the mold. So I ended up taping it down and putting a lid on top of it to kind of hold it on all in place so it didn't float. So that came off really good. Unfortunately, there was still one small little crack, but really didn't mind that at all. So I just went ahead, got some more resin, and added the pigment, and was going to just put that over, and was thinking this is going to turn out really well. We're not going to have a lot of issues because we have learned from our mistakes. But sometimes, in spite of our best intentions, things don't work out the way we always intend. So poured this on there. It looks really cool. Really happy with the color. Look at that. It looks like the secret of the ooze where the Ninja Turtles were like, you know, got their superpowers from. So really happy with it. 4.5 hours later in the pressure pot. Boom. Looks really, really good. And I'm thinking, this is great. Love the way this looks. Love this green color. The wood background is going to look really well. It's going to just be a fabulous piece, just like the other bowls that we have done. And I was thinking, this is going to turn out great. This is going to be our best bowl yet. And you go into these projects with the best of intentions, but sometimes it don't work out that way. So this is where drama started. So I put the faceplate on there. And it was like, okay, the screws are not going in. That sucks. This screw kind of went in, but I was forcing it down, and basically the portion where you screw it down was all threaded through. So I wasted an hour because the screws got stuck. I had to go in there, chisel them all out with a hand chisel and a drill, and drill. You see the drill bit on the right-hand side there. I basically had to just go in and retrieve pieces that broke off from there, and now I have these two gaping holes in there, and I'm thinking, I did this project. I woke up at 3 a.m. on Saturday, which is today when I'm doing the commentary. You guys are literally watching this the next day tomorrow, and decided I don't have time to fill everything in with epoxy and wait for that to harden. So I said, you know what? We're just going to make it up as we go along. So I poured a bunch of hot glue into those voids and thought, what's the worst that can happen? I've already spent an hour messing this bowl up. We've already had problems. What's another one? So glued that down, and then I decided to come back with a piece of pine board and cross my fingers really hard that this was going to work. So I avoided using the deck screws and went back to the smaller screws that I typically use for some of the smaller projects. And I'm thinking, all right, we're just going to tie this down, use a lot of hot glue, and it's going to be absolutely fine. We're not going to have any issues, and this is going to turn out exactly how I wanted to. So once I got all that set up, then we threw it onto the lathe, got a good spin. I'm thinking, you know what, it's going to work out. This is going to be great. So then we start working it down on the lathe, and there is so much wobble, and I'm like, okay, I'm prepared for this part. This happens every time. It is a larger piece of epoxy, so we're going to have some problems with it. So this part went relatively smooth. I smoothed it out. You can see here we're getting some good ribbons off. However, admittingly, there were probably problems before we even started turning this onto the lathe. So I didn't make this mold until about Thursday. So this epoxy had a little bit less than 48 hours to set up. Traditionally, you want the epoxy to set up from anywhere from 3 to 5 days. And that really showed later on in the video, and I think that probably had a lot to do with some of the problems that we encountered, because we're still getting good ribbons on the bottom because that epoxy had a lot more time to cure. But as you'll see later in the video, once I get to the lip of the bowl, we just have so many problems with chip out, and that's part of what happened later on in the video. So I'm getting pretty good material off. We're working it down really well, not having a lot of issues initially. I'm thinking, okay, this is gonna go okay. We're getting stuff worked down. Not too worried. So this is the part where I was really scared. Once I took the tailstock off and that security blanket was kind of removed, I was really hoping that the faceplate would continue to stay on top of the lathe and that there was enough hot glue. Because what I was worried about was once I started to actually take off material, that I was going to get more wobble as the chisels were hitting the actual lathe or the block of epoxy, that it was going to vibrate off and it was just going to completely fly out the lathe. So at this part, I'm really rushing to kind of get it done, because what I'm concerned about is that it's just going to stop and it's just going to fly off the lathe because there's not enough hot glue or points of contact for the actual faceplate to stay on. But thankfully, I was able to succeed in getting that done, and now we got the mortise made, so now we're going to get the faceplate off. And I was like, okay, cool, we've made it this far, we're not going to have a lot of issues. And then the drama started, kind of, sort of. I mean, we already had drama well before this, but this is where I'm working down the material on the lip of the bowl, and I could feel that the vibration on the chisels near the lip of the bowl was a lot different than on the base. I was getting a little bit of chip out, starting and stopping the lathe a lot because I was getting so many chips, and I was really worried that, you know, I was going to have this big piece of epoxy fly off and kind of hit me in the face, which earlier it kind of did when I got to that portion of the bowl, but it was very small and minimal, so I wasn't too worried about it. So then we start gouging out the actual bowl itself, and initially I didn't have any real issues. I stop and start the lathe a couple of times. By this time it's like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's hot in the garage, it's hot in the workshop, and I'm thinking, okay, just get this done, slow little passes, not going to have a lot of issues here. But as we get deeper into the bowl, I started to get a lot more wobble, and I think it was just because there were cracks on the bottom of the epoxy that were vibrating off, and the chuck was just not, the teeth were not just grabbing the bowl the way I needed it to, and it was just a lot of material. This was actually smaller than most of the bigger projects that he had done, so I was kind of, wondering why this keeps happening. But once I get deeper in there, I start to notice a lot more cracking that wasn't visible initially when I had made the mold. And then what ends up happening is I end up going too deep, I get a little bit of chip out, and then off camera, this thing ends up flying off the lathe. But here everything looks like it's going smooth, but I can feel the problem coming on as I'm getting a little bit deeper in the bowl, working the material off, having to stop and start the lathe a lot of the time just to get the material to see where we're at, which was a big concern of mine initially, and we'll get to that part in just a moment here. Unfortunately, I don't capture when the bowl flies off the lathe. Usually I'm really good about capturing that kind of stuff. If you go back and watch my older videos, that's what happened. So I got so frustrated by this time. So many problems, I just threw the damn thing. I was just tired of dealing with it. It was hot. It's early in the morning. I woke up early to do this. Had all this set up, and I just got frustrated and threw the damn thing. But I do show failure on this channel, and there's so many woodworkers out there, and I don't know why people don't show their failures a lot more. I am all about showing all of my failures because I do not know what I'm doing. I am an amateur woodworker, and man, I get pissed off and mad, and sometimes I'll just be throwing stuff in the garage or throwing stuff in the workshop when I get frustrated. So that was just me being a real human there for a moment, totally frustrated, and threw the damn thing. I was about to literally quit on this project, but I was like, no, we still have enough good material here, we can get something out of it, because this is just a lot of epoxy just to throw away and say, hey, we'll just start over at a later date. But we didn't quit on it, and in spite of it not looking exactly how I wanted it to be, I decided, you know what, it's better to have something to show for it than nothing at all. So that's the motivation that kept me going, because I was like, man, I've already invested so much time in this, there's no sense in just throwing the whole damn thing away. So I got to a depth that I was comfortable with. It's a lot more shallow than I wanted it to be, but I was like, okay, cut your losses. It's still something. It's better than nothing. We'll come back and do it better next time. So that was the kind of the motivation behind it. So we sanded it, got everything done like we typically do. And like I said, this is the Ninja Turtle Bowl. So I'm old enough to remember that cartoon in the 80s and 90s, and that cartoon was dope. I remember when the first movie came out, totally dope. Love the Ninja Turtles. So this kind of looks like a turtle shell a little bit. At least you'll see here at the end when I get it all polished up, it kind of does. But, you know, in the spirit of the Ninja Turtles, they don't quit. We don't quit on this channel, but it's important to be transparent, be a human. Like, man, I fuck up all the time on bowls. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm an amateur. There's way more professional guys that are doing this on YouTube. There's so many more of them that do better projects, but I do this because I want to do it, not because I'm, you know, I do it because I want to do it. I don't do it just to do it and have something to do. I love doing this because it's aggravating, and it's still fun sometimes when things go your way and you create something totally awesome. And I think it looks pretty damn good in spite of having all the problems with it. But like I like to say, I am not a professional. There are other professionals on this platform, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram that are way better. So if you like failure and you want to see it, I'm definitely the channel. So hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Okay, so this project is done. You saw all of the problems that came with this Ninja Turtle Bowl, and how fitting that I named it that, because it looks like a shell. It could be a shell of a turtle, a very shallow turtle, because obviously from the beginning of the video to now, you saw all the problems, from the screws getting stuck. I literally spent an hour digging those out, to the lathe. Again, I used to be really good about capturing things flying off my lathe. Fell off the lathe, cracked this, pieces flying out, shooting me in the arm. A lot of problems. It was basically a Ninja Turtle episode without the fun. Not fun at all making this bowl. It looks aesthetically pleasing though. For, you know, what's left of it, it looks really good. You can probably put your car keys in it. You can put some knickknacks in it. Not as big or as in depth as our other ones. I'm just glad. Seriously, when it fell off the lathe, I was really just going to throw this fucking shit away and just say, you know what, we're not going to do it. But I show failure on this channel, and in spite of all the failures, I still got something done. So kudos to us. You can see the lathe just waved this in, and just there's cracks in it, but it's still nice. It's still something presentable. So we show failure. I am all about that on the channel. So things will not go your way sometimes, but overall, I like the way it looks. I like the look of it. Turned out better than what I thought color-wise. Maybe getting to this point, not so much. So hope you guys liked it. Hope you guys are having a good time. Go check out Ninja Turtles. I'm probably going to go watch that tonight. Today is Saturday. You guys are literally watching this tomorrow. What is today? Today is the 5th. You guys are going to watch this on the 6th. And it's 8:15. I started this project at 3 in the morning, 5 hours. Maybe without all the problems, I get this done in 3.5. So anyway, I'm rambling now. Hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe, like it, all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next one. All right. Hopefully the next, you know what? I'm going to say this. Next week, we're going to do a smaller one. We're just going to cleanse our palette. We're going to cleanse our palette and do a smaller bowl. And then come back to the big ones. All right? So, hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe. All right. Have a good weekend, man. Peace.